Welcome aboard. We call this Wednesday, and it's another beautiful day the Lord has given us. Wherever you are, thank you for joining us. We start with our news review, where we'll be joined by political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies, Dr. Kwame Asante, who'll be joining us for the news review as we delve into topical matters in the papers and beyond. Today is Wednesday, and you know what we do. We'll bring you courtesy of EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank, AM Business. And today we'll be talking about the arts. But how about we settle for today's big stories? We're still focusing our lenses on Ghana's economy with different dimensions to it. We've heard from different people. We've heard from the academics. We've heard from the politicians. And now we've heard from the ratings agencies. It's a discourse between the MPP and the NDC about who has managed the economy or the system better. We get into that all-important conversation this morning on the show. Parliament also resumes. There's a debate over whether or not government reported the right COVID-19 funds. Now, this comes after the World Bank country director, Pierre Laporte, indicated that the Bretton Woods institution assisted government with some $430 million for COVID-related spending, and an additional $130 million on the procurement of vaccines, all summing up to some $560 million. We'd be getting the details of that. We'd also be engaging student leaders on the UTAG strike. There was an inconclusive meeting yesterday, and we'll be discussing on this show the details of that. All of that on the show this morning. We have sports, we have the news review, all of that coming your way. You don't want to miss a beat. But right after this, we bring you the AM News. Get informed. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome on the AM News. Now, Minister for Roads and Highways, Kwesi Amwakwata, has backtracked from his widely condemned announcement of converting toll booths into urinals. This was after ranking member on Parliament's Roads and Transport Committee, Kwame Agboja, during the presentation of the reports of the committee on a commercial contract agreement between the Government of Ghana and the BNIP Janson Adorso consortium of Netherlands for an amount of 200 million euros for the construction of a bridge over the Afram River. That is at the Adorso Echi Amanfrom. Disclosed about 4 million cedis of the amount had been earmarked for the construction of toll booths. The Adaklu MP questioned why the minister would, on one hand, seek to convert existing toll booths into urinals and ask for approval to borrow money to construct new ones. The minister interjected, calling the Adaklu MP ignorant. He explained his comments had been taken out of context. Here are excerpts of their altercation on the floor of the House.
The minister is about to borrow an amount of 558,000 Ghana cedi euros, close to 4 million Ghana cedi, to build a new toll booth. You are converting existing toll booths to toilet, yet you are borrowing 4 million Ghana cedi to build a new toll booth. In this document is here. Minister, if you haven't read it, this is where it is. Read the page. Read your own document. And Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't allow ministers to think that when they come here, we give them approval, they can go and do whatever they like. He is very ignorant about what he's talking about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he is quoting from graphic of daily reportage. It was an interview. It's just a small portion that has been turned out. You haven't had the opportunity to listen to the whole interview. Mr. Speaker, I was speaking to the press, and they wanted to know the future of all the toll booths. And among others, I said the ministry has plans and government has plans. We are thinking of a lot of ways to put the toll booths. And among them, I said that even the current toll booths, we have about 38 of them, at various vantage points in the country. And as part of it, we are even going to improve the sanitary situation at all these places. For instance, and I said among other things that for instance, on the highway, and we all see it all the time, vehicles stop indiscriminately, and drivers, passengers get down get down and we see people urinating everywhere in this place. It's so indecent. So if among other things, we use this period to improve the sanitary situation at this toll booths, we would even allow drivers to stop in case passengers want to use that facility, among other things. So it wasn't a statement that I made, it wasn't a report, it was an interview, but that portion was paid, and you do not have access, and you are not privy to the entire
Let's return to
interview.
the report.
And as a member of parliament,
honorable ranking member,
this alone?
Let me put
ignorance.
Honorable Minister, please.
Mr. Speaker.
It shall be out of order to use offensive, abusive, insulting, blasphemous, or unbecoming words, or to impugn improper motives to any other member, or to make personal allusions. Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect to, he may disagree with the colleague in whatever form, but to describe what he's saying as ignorant and speaking out of ignorance, it is improper in our standing orders.
If I use the word ignorance, that word is not an insult. And somebody is ignorant, and all of us can be ignorant of the facts of an issue. So I was trying to draw my colleague's attention that he is ignorant of the facts of the issue. He was not privy to it, of what I said. So it's not directly at my colleague, it's not insulting, it's not abuse. I was referring to the fact that he was talking about a subject that he didn't have all the full facts. He was ignorant of what happened and what took place. And Mr. Speaker, that was what I was referring to, and it wasn't an insult, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister.
Well, from there, Minister for Local Government Dan Botwe has tasked metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives across the country to engage their people to understand their needs and concerns in order to ensure government's development agenda is achieved. He's asking all MMDCEs to submit comprehensive reports of site visits undertaken at the end of each year. Mr. Botwe has been meeting MMDCEs from the regions up north at a refresher workshop in Tamale.
Pressure calls is to provide the MMDCEs with an avenue to share experience with resource persons and experts and also policymakers. It is also to enable them re-strategize and find practical approaches to solving local governmental challenges. Speaking at the event, Mr. Botwe said he would expect a comprehensive report of these engagements at the end of the year.
To interact with the citizens, to better understand their needs, and develop goals and fashion appropriate plans and programs to address them. He hinted that the basic ingredient for success was human relations and charged the Minister of Local Government, which I did, to ensure all MMDCs submit annual itineraries for interactions with residents at the beginning of the year, and to request you to submit comprehensive reports of services undertaken at the end of each year. You will recall that I have directed that you should all submit to my office programs and dates of tentative meetings, and this was submitted to my office 28 February 2022.
The local government minister said to help the MMDCEs succeed in the performance of their functions as well as deepen local government, is determined to prioritize their training and development and tasked the Institute of Local Government to position itself to handle these trainings.
On the delivery of government programs and projects for evidence-based decision-making and policy direction at the central government level. It is envisaged that all MMDCs will provide at least quarterly feedback using the task force and receive information in areas such as deliberative and administrative functions of the assemblies, local economic development, revenue organization and management, infrastructure, social services, special initiatives, and programs of any national interest. And the Institute will give you details of that.
The Northern Regional Minister, Alhaji Shani Alhassan Shaibu, urged the MMDCs to peer review themselves and learn from each other.
Many of you have done your best in such circumstances, but definitely there is still more we can learn from each other and from others dealing with these issues better. One of the such challenges for many of our assemblies is the issue of low internal generated revenue in Northern Ghana.
On to our next story. And the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana last year warned of possible famines in Ghana in 2022. The warning followed the shortage of fertilizer, which made it difficult for farmers to produce enough food to meet the country's demands. At the New Year open door under the theme 20 Years of Developing Agriculture from the Ground Up, stakeholders indicated the problem persists and called on government to address it before it escalates. Samuel Mbura has more on the story.
Speaking to Joy News in an interview at the New Year Open Door Day lunch under the theme 20 Years of Developing Agriculture from the Ground Up by the International Fertilizer Development Center, which was established in 2002 in Ghana to produce and promote local economic development by increasing food and agricultural productivity through effective and environmentally sound crop nutrient technologies and agribusiness expertise using the bottom-up approach, Regional Director for North and West Africa of FDC, Dr. Umu Kamara, raised concerns about the global rising demand for fertilizer.
Yes, fertilizer prices currently are at their highest around the world, not just Africa, but our farmers are most vulnerable. So the strategies for making sure farmers get the needed fertilizer on time at an affordable price.
But Fred Jassy, who is with Africa Fertilizer Organization, has reviewed the unavailability of a primary source of fertilizer in the country.
To produce fertilizers, that is the primary production of fertilizers, you need natural resources. To produce nitrogen fertilizer, you need gas. To produce urea. And currently, I know that the government of Ghana is working on having a gas urea production plant in Ghana, but it's in the pipeline stages, so they don't have it set up yet.
Meanwhile, fertilizer research and responsible implementation has indicated that fertilizer usage in the country is on the rise and cautioned farmers to apply it responsibly.
At the moment, I would say fertilizer application in Ghana has increased. Some few years ago, we were around 16 kilograms per hectare per farmer, but at the moment, we are getting closer to 30 kilograms per farmer. Due to the introduction of the Planting for Food and Jobs program, fertilizer usage has gone up. And at the moment, Ghana is around 20 to, let's say, 25 to 30 kilograms per hectare per capita.
For the agri sector to develop in the country, government will have to base its strategy on the development of public-private partnership as drivers of change by developing innovative approaches to improving the governance of agricultural value chain. For Joy News, Samuel Mbura, Accra.
Let's talk social advocacy now. And the chief of Breman Jamra is hailing the multimedia group for blazing the trail in impactful journalism. This comes as the group mobilizes public support to help build a safer school block for the community. Jase Hene Nanakwesi Enin, the third, while urging multimedia to keep up the good work, also appealed for more public support to complete the work on schedule. There's more in this report.
The Multimedia Group's classroom project is tailored towards promoting philanthropy for development at the community level without looking up to the central government or donor support. The construction of a 3-unit classroom block at Breman Jamra is one of the many development projects the community needs. The initiative has since won the hearts of the traditional leaders.
And let me take this opportunity to thank multimedia. It's not about the yesterday journalism that we all know. this one is journalism about the challenges people are facing in their communities, and it's a plus for multimedia. My prayer is that when this project is done, you will not just move to, is it Tolon? You told us that you are doing one in Tolon, you do that one and go to other communities as well.
Unlike before, work on site has slowed down a bit in the last couple of days due to dwindling community participation. The traditional authorities are not too happy and have been calling for additional support.
Today's communal labor is not like yesterday. Hitherto, the community was a very small area, mechanical solidarity community. So immediately there's a gong bita. Everybody comes on board to do the work. They will come to the work from 6 a.m., 11 a.m. Then they go. The diminishing return sets in. And so from 11 upwards, what happens? We engage some technical people, then the community pays them. So this is our challenge. We need, we will continue to ask humbly so as to get the needed support to complete the project on time.
There has been a long time perception of people, particularly Ghanaians, that government should provide everything. So in the meantime, what we've been doing, we've been engaging them, we've been talking to them to sort of work on their psyche that these times have changed and the government cannot do everything. So that is the solution that we are using to solve this challenge. But so whilst we are speaking to them, we're talking to them, if, like Nana said, if the people who are helping us, if they can donate some more, just something small to motivate them. We are looking at the time that the project should end. Okay, that's where the issue is.
Despite the challenge, some of the community members have been expressing their commitment to seeing the project through completion.
It's all about leadership, so I see it as possible. We'll be able to finish the project within the 10 days. We'll have to meet our people again and talk to them.
My friends, Edmanded it. A man, yes, so say, yeah. Sanya Moboy and I say, yes, for Yabois, as a school, no, who be see what ma, both are free people, baby. School down here, into my minkum, Naminko Siade.
The classroom project is brought to you kind courtesy the Star Ghana Foundation with funding from the Dutch Foreign Affairs Ministry. It is supported by the Israeli Embassy, Forestry Commission, the Planned City Extension Project, DBS Roofing Sheets, and you, our cherished audiences. The classroom project, promoting social justice through philanthropy.
Well, here we are. Let's get into the news review now. We're joined by Dr. Kwame Asante, who joins us to discuss the major issues on the day. Doc, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining.
Good morning, sir.
My former lecturer calling me, sir. I hope you're well.
Very well. And yourself?
By God's grace, I'm doing really well. Even before we get into today's papers, I just wanted to run by you the bit about the recent ratings when it comes to our creditworthiness as a country. Standard & Poor's, Fitch, Moody's. I'm sure you've taken a look at them, and especially Moody's downgrading us, making matters even worse for us on the international borrowing market. I know you dabble in international politics, and of course there are monetary or economic affairs that arise as well. What is your take on that as a patriot, as a citizen, and with the backlash from government to some of these agencies saying that it's not necessarily the right picture? How do you feel about that?
To be honest with you, I don't know how they work, they do their calculations, and I have no idea about their operations. So for me to comment on it becomes so difficult. They have their standards. Unfortunately, I've not seen the standards, the canons that they use to measure performance of country, and out of which they are able to downgrade or upgrade. I'm not privy to that. So it's a very difficult question for me. I'm afraid I will not be able to handle it.
My point wasn't for you to get into the nitty-gritty in terms of, I know you're not an economist, but I was asking, how does it make you feel as a citizen, the fact that we've been downgraded? And of course, what this means is that we're going to suffer when it comes to borrowing on the international market. For us to get a CAA1, the first time we're actually getting that, I mean, what does that mean to you? That's what I was asking.
Yeah, it is true that this government, take it or leave it, have done well to manage the economy to a certain point. It is also a fact that we have seen the effect of COVID on our economies, but also it is also true that if you look at recent times, we are facing a lot of difficulties. So I don't know whether they are taking all these things into consideration to put us at where we are. But what, for me, is the way to go is that we need to be able to up our game and get the right ratings and move on. Because I'm saying this, if we continue to argue here and there, I'm sure that doesn't solve our problem for you. But what we need to do is to think outside the box and see how best we can deal with the problem that confront us today. And for me, that is the way to go.
Talking of, money matters or monetary affairs, so this administration is said to have spent about 33 billion Ghana cedis, or got 33 billion Ghana cedis on the back of COVID-19. There's been a $1 billion concessional facility from the IMF, another $1 billion in SDR allocations, $430 million from the World Bank, $250 million from the Stabilization Fund, 10 billion Ghana cedis from the Central Bank, totaling 33 billion. When you look at what we've done, delivering utilities, water, electricity, PPE, and others, of course, we're paying for the utilities now. I mean, there's the COVID-19 levy and all of that. What do you think about our expenditure so far? 33 billion, and we have supposedly pumped all of that into dealing with COVID. Have you seen the palpable effect of this sum of money?
That is another difficult question, especially from my background as a non-economist. Yes, because these things, you need data to support your argument. How far they've dispersed this, I don't know. How, these things, what are the areas that these monies went into? I have no idea at all. So let's see. Government must respond to this so that we know the disbursement, where they pump the money and all that. But I want to be sure, or I believe that strongly, definitely they have pumped the money into the system, and they will be in the right position to tell us exactly where the money was put into, so that I will settle this debate once and for all.
Let's get into the Daily Graphic newspaper. 6 million Apiate explosion fine. Maxim pays $1 million. And $5 million remainder payable within 18 months. So the details there. Maxim Ghana Limited, the company at the center of the explosion that occurred at Apiate in the Prestia Huni Valley municipality, has paid $1 million into government's coffers as a fine. Now, the company has also agreed to pay $5 million, or its CD equivalent, to the government in 18 equal installments of 277,000 plus American dollars from the first day of next month all the way to August the 1st next year. And of course, this being imposed by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Maxim accepted the fine, but they also spoke about the fact that they were not directly involved. There was another entity, which was in charge of conveying the explosives. And they are saying it is unfair to them that at no point did they, as an entity, breach whatever laws or regulations, regulate their activities. But this fine that has been imposed, a lot of people are asking, for example, based on what assessment, does it go into factoring how much will be spent on rebuilding Apiate, on compensating, members of the community or whatever? It's not too clear. But $6 million, that's the fine. Your take, Doc?
Yes, it's very unfortunate that we had that situation. But my biggest worry is that on what basis is that company accepting to pay $1 million as a fine? Let us remember that they have, made statement to the fact that, they are not responsible for what happened and all that. So on what basis are they paying the money? That I don't get it.
Well, just to interject, Doc, they have suggested, after paying $1 million, yes, their license is going to be given back to them, or they are going to be allowed to operate again. It was revoked initially. They're going to be allowed to operate. And then subsequently, they have to pay the remaining $5 million in installments from next month to August the 1st next year. You would suppose that to get back into business, because each day they are not in business, they lose, and the mining companies they deal with also lose. So you would see that for them, it's a win-win situation to pay the sum of money and make more from their activities.
But that one, I still don't get it, because, you see, that's why the courts are there for us to battle our issues out. If there is something that you are talking about me, and which I know is not the case, and even though I have employees that I pay them monthly and all that, I need to battle this thing out. And then to accept that, yes, I'm ready to pay, but I'm not the one responsible and all that, it's a bit difficult for me to take. But come to look at it, I'm also worried that we don't have the full gamut of the reports. The two reports, we don't have them, so that we can look at the issues, piece them together, and make meaningful, deduction from what we have there. We don't have that, and it's a worrying situation. I think that those in authority must make them available so that we can all have access. It's part of the transparency process, and it's part of what good governance agenda. Another issue also is that if we are compensating, look at the devastation, the effect on the society. Is it to the extent that it can take care of their difficulties and all that? We know it is very difficult, it's even impossible to bring dead people to life. But I'm saying that the compensation wouldn't worth the destruction that we saw, or the damage and all that. All these things must be factored properly, so that at the end of the day, those who have lost their loved ones, so those who are in difficulty, will breathe a sigh of relief, and then they can move on with their lives. I am sure in the days ahead, we are going to get something that will throw light on some of all these dark spots, so that at the end of the day, we as a country can deal with this situation. The people of Apiate will also breathe a little sigh of relief, and then come back to normal life, and we'll move as one people in this state.
Well, let's stay with the Daily Graphic. And on that same page where we took the Apiate story from, actually on a different page, but this is page 29. And it says, Reed's obituary for Bost CEO invoke fear. I'm sure you'd be interested in this one. It says, fear has gripped workers of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Company Limited after they were welcomed to work on Monday by Reed's, bearing the name of the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Edwin Provençal, laid at the entrance of the head office in Accra. The identity of the character or characters behind them is unknown at the moment. The mostly white and red Reeds bore inscriptions such as, "Rest in peace, Mr. Edwin Provençal, rest well," among others. Now, the message supposedly conveyed via the Reeds was not immediately clear, but Mr. Provençal told the Daily Graphic that the development was strange, but not unexpected. Now, in the role he plays, I mean, over time, there have been people who have not been happy, even with his assuming that role, people who have not been happy with his work. We all know how Bost has been mired in so many different things. And but to send reads to him, basically, anonymous people, how do you reflect on this? What is your reflection on it, Doc?
It's a very interesting development. But, you know, that should not deter Mr. Provençal to be doing the good things that he's doing at the place. He should continue, but he must get the police informed about any situation that he deems crosses the line, so that he can be catered for properly by the law.
Right.
But I am always for those who are ready to support the state for us to deal with our challenges. So he should continue to do the good job. And then if there's anybody there who feels that what he's doing at the moment frowns upon the law courts are there to help us to address this situation. But such threats, he should consider them as veiled threats, though, but he must also be careful how he goes about things, and then so that these things doesn't become a reality. But I support him for the good work that he's doing. He should continue and then be cautious. That's all.
In terms of being cautious, do you think on the back of something like this, I mean, you can read between the lines and it's either someone wants to do him in or wants to cause him some harm. Should the police be stepping in to maybe give him extra assistance, security until a certain point? Do you think the police should be stepping in?
Oh, that is certainly so. That once he goes to make a complaint, then police will take it from there. But he himself must be mindful of a few things in there. Because in every organization, there are three categories of workers: the saints, the wizards, the demons. Those who want to support the system, it doesn't matter what it is. Those who want to get spoiled at any time, and those who don't care a hoot about what is happening, they sit on the fence. It's always the difficult ones are the wizards, that nothing will please them and all that. But he should be able to get at least those who are the demons back on his side and work. Obviously, there are a group of people who will not like whatever you do, even though you are able to increase their salary and all that. But that to be expected. He must live above this and should not be cowed into submission and continue to build that facility which is very solid for this country, and to drive all our expertise and then bring glory to all of us. That facility is a very important one, and that we need strong people who have vision and will be able to turn things around and make this country a better place.
Doc, let's wrap with two more stories in the Daily Graphic newspaper. I'll start with the one on page 17. Convene forum to address economic challenges. That's according to former President John Dramani Mahama, who has also, in a recent release, been talking about the fact that we need a post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan. A post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan. I mean, we had that after the world wars and all of that. And in this instance, he is calling for a plan, like maybe many years down the line when we had issues under his tenure and we had the Senchi meeting and all of that. Do we need that, a plan to get us out of our economic woes? Or should we just wing it through these turbulent economic times?
I think that suggestion is not bad, but the government may have its own plan. Whatever it is, all that we need is that we should be able to surmount this difficult situation that we have on our hands.
Right.
And that needs a careful plan, a careful discussion and analysis of the situation, so that at the end of the day, there's something that is worth pursuing. We pursue it with all the energies that we have. That is all.
The other story on page 16, Ghana National Fire Service targets 5-minute emergency response time. And this interests me a lot. In recent times, we've had incidents where entire families, one of them I know, a family of 5, burnt to a crisp. Another family of 7, somewhere around Kaswa, burnt to a crisp as well. And we've seen quite a number of those incidents from late last year into this year. The Ghana National Fire Service is to reduce the country's emergency fire response from the current average time of 10 minutes to the global standard of 5 minutes. Now, in line with that, the service will open 92 more fire stations in strategic areas from now to 2024 in order to bring the service closer to the people. But one thing I do know, I mean, from some of the reports, some of which I have covered, even the response time of 10 minutes that we're speaking of is not usually met. Now we're reaching for 5 minutes. Doable? Practical? Doc?
It's a difficult question. Why am I saying that? Because as you have already said, even the 10, we're finding it difficult to meet that standard. So now we are reducing to 5. What have we put in place to turn things around to the extent that we can do this in 5 minutes. If we want to improve standards, we must make sure that there exist certain facilities that support our processes. Otherwise, it becomes just a rhetoric.
Right.
But if that is the case, that they can meet the 5, who doesn't like this? We want to save our society, save our people. So if they can work within 5 minutes, just a call, and 5 minutes they are the doorstep of your house, that's good news. But let us be realistic and practical and see whether what we want to do, we have the resources, we have the wherewithal to drive it home. That is, for me, is critical that we need to pay attention to.
Well, that also resonates with a story that was shared in recent times, talking about the fact that nearly 50% of fire hydrants in Ghana are not even functional. The very fire hydrants that the fire service, when they need water, emergency situations, they would fall on, about 50% of them are not even functional. And so that goes to add to the problems that need to be addressed, especially as they attempt meeting the 5-minute international time. But let's do the Finder newspaper now. We'll see Ghana out of the woods. That's according to the World Bank. It's not going to be easy, but the World Bank says it will assist Ghana to get out of the economic woods. Maxim reluctantly agrees to pay $6 million fine. We've already addressed that. And there's NPA solicits support of security agencies to end smuggling. All of those stories in the Finder newspaper. But there's this bit, even as we speak about the roads minister urging contractors to support the e-levy. Have you heard of what was making the rounds yesterday? That there was a suggestion by Kwesi Amoakwata that the toll booths, they are no longer in use, that they ought to be converted into washrooms, so to speak. Of course, he backpedaled on the floor of Parliament. But how does that strike you? Is that a creative way of making use of the toll booths if we are doing away with them, some 38 in question? Converting them into washrooms.
He has come to debunk that, so we cannot stretch the conversation.
No, but even while debunking it, Doc, he stated that it was out of a pool of suggestions, which still means that while he is saying that it shouldn't be taken out of context as the only thing he said, that was what he said on the floor of Parliament, it remains one of the ideas they could use if they are going to, convert them. So it's not been thrown away. I just want to know what you think about converting them into washrooms.
Yes, if this is the idea, for me, it's a very funny one. Why am I saying that? Can you imagine those places that we have the booths and then people queuing to go and use the WC and whatnot? How funny it will be that sometimes 2-3 people hanging around there, and you have a lot of cars, people plying the street and all that. That would be a very ugly spectacle for us. What they need to do is to think outside the box and find useful means by which they can put this thing to. There's no, it doesn't cost them anything to come back and use the booth and generate the resources. Now that we need resources so much that every person counts, why have you abandoned us? You can, bring it back and ensure that you keep the environment clean. You ensure sanitary condition is put to the highest. That is the way to go. But to suggest that you want to use it for washroom and all that, for me, at the middle of the road highway, then I have never seen such, a structure before. The little rounds that have gone all over the world, I have not seen that. Maybe this is a new innovation, but for me, it will not help anybody. Let us think about how we can turn it into, or bring back the booth to serve the purpose for which it was serving society. And if you have problems with the environment, we can deal with it and then bring it to scratch so that it will be appreciated. But that's a proposal. If that is what they have on the table, I'm afraid I will urge them to expunge it.
The Ghanaian Times newspaper now. World Bank earmarks $1 billion support for Ghana under New Country Partnership Framework. I've already mentioned that. Interestingly, over the next 5 to 6 years, they are contemplating pumping some $3.5 to $4 billion into Ghana. All of that dependent on certain conditions, of course. There's also take advantage of employment opportunities within YEA, CEO urges OT youth. And then attempt to serve Asin North MP with injunction motion unsuccessful. This has brought up it's raised quite a storm, and it's got a lot of tongues wagging. And the Registrar of the Supreme Court yesterday told the court that 2 attempts to serve the Member of Parliament for Asin North constituency, Mr. James Jachikwason, with an injunction motion has proved futile. There is also that bit about his bodyguard, or his directing his bodyguard to allegedly assault the bailiff who was going to serve him. But of course, a member of the NDC has also come up, in fact, we've heard from Chachu Chikata as well, mentioning that that was not the case, and that in fact, Jachikwason was not even in his office at the time to have directed his bodyguard to assault this bailiff. And we're talking Parliament here. But this entire bit about the Asin North MP, do you think he should just make himself available and go through the process so he doesn't muddy the waters even further?
I'm smiling because, you know, I'm not a lawyer to give that counsel to the honorable member.
No, but some things you don't need to be a lawyer to see. I mean, from where you sit.
I'm just developing an argument.
Right.
All that I'm saying that he has very good lawyers around him. They will be able to give the necessary advice that will stand the test of time. So why don't you allow them to do their work? I always believe that when things are before the court and all that, we allow the lawyers, we allow the court process to follow so that we learn from that. So that at the end of the day, when judgment is passed and all that, we can take something home. So for now, I believe that he's in safe hands with people like Mr. Chachu Chikata and all that. They will be able to give the right advice for him to follow.
Let's do the Daily Guide newspaper. Another very interesting one. LGBTQI plus bill bad for economy. And that is on page 6 of the paper. And a new report by the CDD, the Center for Democratic Development, has indicated that the promotion of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex plus bill will bring about adverse economic constraints for Ghana. According to the report, the country's existing economy or production systems are not only weak, but heavily interlinked and reliant on the Western economic order, and therefore the bill could be a source of economic drag on Ghana's aid basket. I listened to the chief researcher on this at the CDD yesterday, and I also listened to Sam George, and it left me scratching my head, and I'm talking about Bernard Anaba here, about whether this is real, fictional, or factional, a combination of fact and fiction. How do you see it? LGBTQI plus bill, if it's passed into law, and whether because some Western countries that aid us or entities that aid us are in support of LGBTQI, it will necessarily result in our failure to secure funds. How do you think through this?
You see, we are in a very difficult time. Why am I saying that? Look at, we are struggling to have our budget pass. And we are also struggling to raking a lot of revenue to run the affairs of the state. And now you have this on our hand. If the CDD report is anything to go by, saying that about 6% is going to be taken off and all that from donors and others. But you see, when you are making a policy, you have to take away emotions, you have to take away traditions and religious beliefs and all that. I'm not saying that they are bad, all right? I am not the right person to judge. But you want to find out its implications and within the international system. That, yes, now you want to pass this, but have you taken into consideration the effect that it will bring if donors decide that they will not give you money? And that's where the conversation is. I don't know, and I'm not sure those who support the bill have reflected through this and they have a certain solution for us. Now, the stark reality is that, yes, you want to pass the bill. Nobody is worrying you. Nobody is preventing you from doing so. But the CDD report tells you that there is something ahead of us. And how do you deal with that? Those who were so emotional, were so religious, those who were, had all manner of, ideas there. This is a time they must also come to the rescue of the state to see how we can forge ahead now that this thing is gradually becoming albatross on our neck. That's the difficult thing that now all of us as a people must face, irrespective of our beliefs, as far as the LGBTQ policy is concerned. Now, the stark reality is that, yes, if what we are getting from CDD is going to happen, then we are going to lose so much from donors and all that. And let us remember that even though we are independent, we are still dependent on some of these things.
And that brings to mind this next bit. Yes, he says, Mr. Anaba says this is going to be a source of social disorder rather than order. But again, some people have raised the question, yes, we are depending on these foreign institutions. But is this not, a clarion call for us to be more dependent, for us to learn to wean ourselves of the purse strings of other entities, the Bretton Woods institutions, the West, and all of that? We can't even put up a budget without donor funding. We always need something to support our budget. So do we always, shouldn't this be a guide so that if this is what we want to do in terms of LGBTQI, we can't even do it because we are tied to the purse strings of economies and businesses outside our own shores? Should that not also guide us in that direction, to be more self-sufficient?
Yeah, that one, you don't need anybody to tell you that, yes, even though you are independent, you are still dependent on the powers that be for survival. And for me, that is the difficult thing that should happen to any state. So if you want to win yourself out of this, you don't need any tutorial from anybody. All that you need is to put your house in order so that you don't go for any facility from anywhere in the world, so that people can give you their own regulations and conditions that will not be favorable to you. Once you're getting your basics right within your own country, who is forcing you to come over to come and look for funding? You can go ahead. So this is a wake-up call for all of us, that whenever we are coming out with a policy, it should be a policy that will stand the test of time and will take into consideration what will be the effect within the international system. Let us remember that the international system is chaotic, and it is for a good reason that it is so. That nobody in there is a philanthropist who is interested in doling out money to you without giving you something for you to think about. Let us not deceive ourselves into believing that. When we are able to balance this thing carefully, at the end of the day, any decision that we take, irrespective of our religious beliefs, our whatever be the case, at the end of the day, a sound judgment can come so that we can do something that will stand the test of time.
Let's wrap with the Republic Press newspaper very briefly. Some stories there of interest. I'll have you reflect on one of them. GES interdicts JSS teacher in Tamale for sexual assault. And there is Baumia has gone into hiding after tanking the Ghanaian economy. That's according to Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, or Felix Kwakye Ofosu. But I want you to react to this very quickly. Mahama was a failure. He has no right to criticize Akufo-Addo on the economy. And that's John Dramani Mahama being referenced and Gabi Otredako making the assertion. How do you feel about this? Justified? Mahama was a failure. He has no right to criticize Akufo-Addo on the economy. Your quick thoughts on that?
I respect anybody's view, including that of Mr. Gabi, for expressing his thought on this. I don't take that from him. But you see, in governance, we must be prepared to listen to, different views. It doesn't matter how painful they are. Why am I saying that? If you look at the economy, how it was handled under John Mahama, we had difficulties, and that is a fact which Mr. Gabi has alluded to. There's no problem about that. But let us remember that all the wrong things that were done under Mahama, that conversation was settled by the 2016 election.
Right.
All right. That the government was not doing things right. The government was incompetent. The government was this, that. And then the good people of this country look at this and serve as a guide to judge the government and throw the government away. So when you have a new government that is in place, the new government must be able or must be seen to be delivering the goods. Of course, this government, if you see the first period that the government was in office, fantastic achievement in various areas and all that. This time around, we have little difficulties, but let us remember that the government has 4-year mandate. So still have time to reflect on these things to deal with. So for me, it is the new regime that we are talking about, how he's be able to handle this issue. But he, Mahama, has been, as a Ghanaian, has every right to also comment on an issue. But let us remember that difficulty we have in Mohammed's era, that conversation was finally dealt with or settled with the 2016 election, that the government that we put in office was the right government that Ghanaians believed that would deliver the goods. And I have no doubt in my mind that ever since we put Nana into office, nobody can tell me that he has not achieved much. That would be also something difficult to take. He had done a lot. The records are there, except that in recent times we have difficulties, which everybody is thinking around the box and see how best they can get out of this. And for me, that is my position on this matter.
Doc, it's been another good one. We're grateful that you took the time to join us this early in the morning. And we wish you the best of the rest of the day.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
Right. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante joining us here for the news review. We have a lot more coming your way when we hit our big stories for the day. Of course, the economy will still be on our radar. But right up next, we bring you sports. Do stay with us. Well, from AM Business, we go straight into our big stories. And this morning, we're contemplating quite a number of issues in terms of our economy. For example, when we are told by the CDD's latest report that is going to be impacted, that is how much we get from these foreign countries, the West specifically, and institutions that give us loans, that we're going to be suffering if we push through the LGBTQI plus bill. What does that really mean? We'll bring you details of that, even as we interact with the members of parliament we're going to be speaking to on the economy, on the recent ratings, and on the e-levy moving forward. We're also going to be talking about student leaders and how they feel, divergent opinions on the UTAG strike. All of that as we get into our big stories. We have Member of Parliament for Bongo, Edward Abambere Bawa, joining the conversation. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
We also have joining via phone Dr. Stephen Amwa, Member of Parliament for Inshaya, so he'll be on the lines shortly. But here we are discussing our economy once more. It appears to have become a pet subject in recent times, something that we are talking about day in and day out. But what is your initial reaction, since we've not got to speak on the Fitch, the Standard & Poor's, and the Moody's ratings? What is your reaction to the ratings we've got in recent times? Fair reflection of where we are, economically speaking?
Yeah, so good morning to the viewers. Basically, I think that it's unfortunate that our country has gotten to a state where we cannot hold our own when it comes to how we are doing in terms of the credit ratings. Obviously, that's the basis for which any investor will want to invest in your economy. As to whether it is fair or not, that's one thing that it is obvious, because the reasons they've mostly given two reasons.
Right.
Liquidity challenges and debt unsustainability. These are the two things. And the facts on the ground, all the economic data that has been published seem to suggest, whether through the budget, through the Bank of Ghana and what have you, seem to confirm that. As we speak today, the country is struggling when it comes to how to even manage our debt. Just in terms of amortization and the interest payments, it's about 46 billion that we are supposed to pay for this year. So it gives you a very clear indication that if you look at our debt to GDP ratio, which in our own estimation is somewhere around 83%, it tells you very clearly that as a country like us,
we're told we're around 78%. Of course, we've seen the global, some global entities actually put us at 83%.
And the reason why they put it,
we've seen some of those.
What government has done.
But our administration is saying we're at 78%.
The reason why, what government has done is to decouple some particular loans and ring fence them and do not put them on the national debt. I'll give an example. The ESLA, the energy sector levy, you remember that it was collateralized under the ESLA PLC, and then we went in for about 10 billion. That is a particular loan that government does not put on the national debt. Meanwhile, it is money that we are supposed to pay. You see the Sino Hydro. You remember that they said it was collateralization. and therefore it was not loan. But the moment you start drawing down on those loans, it becomes a burden on the country. So far, we've taken about 600 million from the Sino Hydro, from government's own reporting. The Dachi, we've taken about 2.8 billion. So it gives you a very clear indication that when you put all these particular type of loans that are hidden outside the national basin and put them together, for somebody in there, so for IMF, for the World Bank, for all other, even the credit ratings, agencies, they will look at your total debt, and on the basis of that, make a case out of it. So if you have a debt to GDP ratio that's about 83%, obviously your debt sustainability issues becomes a challenge for us. Liquidity, my brother, just three expenditure items exceeds the current revenue projections by about 12.5 billion. Because if you look at the projections that we have given that we are supposed to have, if you look at our total, including e-levy, we're supposed to be able, the projection is that we're supposed to have 100.5 billion. If you take amortization and then interest payment, if you take compensation, and you take statutory funds, that the DACF, that the Disassemblies Common Fund, the National Health Insurance, the Road Fund and other things, those earmark funds, if you put them together, the total amount is 113 billion. So already from the word go, per our laws and per the Constitution, you are already running a deficit of about 12.5 billion. So if you have that, and you yourself, you have decided to indicate that in terms of your 2022 budget, your projection is that your capex is you are going to expend about 16 billion. Your goods and services is going to be 9 billion. That's already another 25 billion. So from the word go, you are tight. There's no money anywhere. Government has indicated that, look, per addition that we intend, that as part of their measure, their fiscal consolidation measure, the finance minister, post the budget, had announced that they were going to cut expenditure by 20%. But government has not told you where they are going to cut the expenditure. They have not. And I remember that was one of the things that Professor Bokin said to your station here. Because the reason is that the three expenditure items I told you, that sums up to 113 billion. They cannot cut it. Because those things are statutory.
Which are what exactly?
The compensation, the interest payments, and then they cannot cut it.
Right.
So government should be able to tell us, is it the case that they are going to cut in terms of the goods and services?
But I think there's been some indication.
And what is the indication?
That even the allocations to different ministries, different sectors, will see some of these cuts.
Yeah, but you see, the allocations do not include, and that's the point I'm just trying to make. In terms of compensation, is it that they are going to reduce salaries? Because the compensation, are they going to reduce salaries? That is one thing. Interest
so that is out of the question.
That's out of the question. The interest payment and amortization, is it that they are going to say that they are not going to pay the people?
We must meet our
you must meet that.
Right.
What they call it, the DACF, the Disassemblies Common Fund, it's a constitutional obligation.
But at least we know with that one there's a bit of leeway. I mean, we know of delays that are... So there at least, whether for good or for bad, we know that can be. I don't want to say manipulated, but...
No, but that is what, for example, somebody from... because you are talking about the fairness of the rating agencies.
Right.
The rating agencies look at your law. Your law says that X amount of money from your total revenue must go to DACF.
Right.
And so for them, they do the calculation. If you decide to flout that particular law, that in itself is not good governance.
Right.
Are you getting the point I'm making? It goes against you as it is. So it means that these are the statutory funds, the earmark funds are no areas for all of us in terms of those things. So they cannot be seen to be cutting those things. So if you have those things, already that outstrips your revenue projections. The only place they have, if they are going to follow the law, follow the constitutional provisions and what have you, the only place they have is to say that this year there's not going to be capital expenditure. It means that this year we shouldn't be expecting them to construct any road. We shouldn't be expecting them to Agenda 111, the hospitals. We shouldn't be thinking about them. This year, in terms of goods and services, we should forget about the whole idea of having to deal with those ones. So clearly, government does not have it. So for me, it is a fair reflection of how we find ourselves. Indeed, even you see that, the three rating agencies,
right,
in terms of Fitch, in terms of Moody's, and then the S&P. S&P, even though they maintained their original ratings, they did that on the basis of the fact that government, and you realize that they said that in the next they will review that in the next 6 months. They are hoping that...
Yes, they've said that, in fact, within 3 to 6 months.
6 months.
Not up to 6 months.
3 to 6 months.
They're going to be
because
reviewing, and they would consider whether to maintain us or downgrade.
So it means that there's a contemplation of the fact that they want to downgrade, but they just want to listen to government. Government says that they are going to cut down on their expenditure. So maybe government thinks that they can make some revenues available. And you see, in terms of even getting some liquidity space, may not necessarily be as a result of the fact that you should be increasing taxes. It could also be the fact that government may also look up, because expenditure cutting is just to be able to give you an opportunity to have something to deal with.
Right.
But maybe there may be some measures, because the finance minister had indicated that, look, they are going to see how they can plug the holes in terms of how the seepages take place, in terms of wastage in the system.
Right.
Even though government has not brought us any comprehensive plan as to how they are going to address those things. So for me, again, to answer your question, I think it's a fair reflection. And you know that when government decided to appeal to Moody's in terms of the fact that they felt that the ratings were not fair, they had not taken into consideration 2 major issues. One being the fact that they said they were cutting down expenditure. The second being that Ghana was a beacon of democracy, and therefore stability, political risk, and other things were very low. The question that you ask yourself is, if you take Ghana being a beacon of democracy, currently, what we are doing, most countries have done the same thing, and their democracy have not survived. It's just because for us, to a very large extent, Ghanaians are a bit adverse to issues of interventions and other things. But in terms of the conditions prevailing, is it the best? You have a situation where you finish an election and the number of people who die is more than a coup d'etat. That cannot be a beacon of democracy. You have a situation where there are a lot of other things that government must follow strictly because this is what the law says. And if state institutions are compromised, people observe these things. So when government...
Are you suggesting all of these went into whatever rating?
When you say something...
And when you say, for example, that you are done with an election and it's more than a coup d'etat, people dying, I mean, is that factual?
It's factual. It's factual. Since 1992... How many people lost their lives in the last election? In the last, about 8 people lost their lives.
Yes, I knew you would go back to the 8
now,
which has been contested by you. But
once they contest, the people have not died or... Excuse me, no, don't go far.
I mean...
No, let's come back to it.
Talk about whether...
Let's come back to it. Is it that the people didn't die?
Related to the election.
Excuse me? They said what?
There's been a contest about whether all of those deaths were related to the election. I mean,
so what were they related to?
Well,
they got malaria. They got malaria and died. You see, I'm just making the point that these are very what do you call it? They were not just brought from the space or Mars. They have family members and they are no longer with them. They have buried them, performed funerals. So when somebody is saying that you had...
I mean, this is no laughing matter, but your comments cracked me up.
So anyway. I'm just making the point that the conditions under which they felt that Moody should have looked at Ghana favorably in terms of that becomes whatever. And so I as a country, I think that let's all agree that look, we are in a shithole, excuse my language, and that we need to find a way of coming out of it. There must be a broader consultation. There must be all hands must be on deck.
You concur with what your presidential candidate in 2020 is saying?
Yes.
That we should come together
as a country.
He's been talking about a COVID-19 recovery plan, for example. That's what you are aiming towards.
So because you see, the crisis that we had in 2015, nowhere near the one that we have now. In 2015, the crisis we had were as a result of collapse of our commodities in the international market, the prices. We talked about a prolonged power crisis, and this definitely had an effect on our economy. Even with that, what the then government, under his leadership, was that, look, where we have got into, look, the famous saying, country broke, country no broke, we're all the inside. Is that not it? Let's see how we can get these things done. Brought everything, even though the then opposition had encouraged their people not to attend A few of them attended. You know, the respected economist, Kwame Pianim attended. And then there was what
he was actually the only one.
Yes, he was. Actually, Osafo Mafo also took off, got there, and they told him, oh yeah, they called him and told him to come back. You understand? So, but I'm just saying that it is not for want of invitation. That's why they were not there. They were invited. So there were other stakeholders, other academics and whatever who were there to be. And that's how we got what we call the document that came out of Senchi, the Senchi consensus. This was the document what we call the homegrown policies that we had. We took to the IMF. People will always question. So why would you have to go to IMF? There was a reason why we went to IMF. The international community will always have a feeling that since you are still the same government, you have brought out a policy that you want to stick to it. The question is that do they believe that the prescriptions you have given to yourself, you will really follow those prescriptions? And so there was a need to take that policy to the IMF for credibility's sake. So that people know that in terms of these things, these are the things that we have imposed on ourselves that we are going to do.
Right.
Quick one. If you look
and very quick, because I also want to bring in
yes,
Dr. Stephen
the only thing that was changed by the IMF there had to do with the central bank financing. Right. You remember that they had said that in 2015, we should not exceed 5% in terms of central bank financing. And in 2016, it should be zero financing when it comes on, in terms of the central bank. And this, the government followed. So the 3-year program that was done was a program that was actually carved and fashioned out by Ghanaians. And that is what the president is saying that, look, our panacea is not the e-levy. The e-levy story that we are talking about is part of the revenue projections of the 100.5 billion. And so that cannot really solve your problem. Your problem goes beyond that. And that if you bring all the brains, and Ghanaians are blessed with a lot of talents, if you bring all the brains on board, we will be able to fashion out something to come out of these difficulties. Okay. And I think that's the way we should be looking at it.
Dr. Stephen Amwa, thank you for joining the conversation. Do we have Dr. Stephen Amwa on the line? Well, Dr.
Hello?
Stephen Amwa is Member of Parliament for Nshiayeso, and he will also join the conversation. Hello, Doc. Can you hear me?
Hello, sir. Yeah, I can.
Great. Ben here. It's good to have you join us on the AM show. We have your colleague, Edward Bauer, Member of Parliament for Bongo, in the studio.
Sorry. Thank you. Should I go ahead, please?
So I'm sure you've been following the conversation. I just wanted to find out from you, what is your reaction to the recent ratings that we've got from S&P's, Moody's, and Fitch? Of course, we've been talking about some of them, but Moody's has given us a CAA1 rating. They've stuck to their guns, and members from your quarters, Dr. John Kuma and others, have spoken against it. I recall that Dr. John Kuma said it was hypocritical and mere propaganda. Is that how you feel as well about the recent ratings?
My regards to our listeners this very morning. And seriously speaking, so the ratings got to the point where people are talking about people dying during elections and other things.
Right.
You see, the problem we have in our country is the fact that people think they can only win power when they do propaganda and deceive the public. Serious issues such as what we are discussing today calls for very serious analysis and very honest, holistic. It's not only fornication which is sin. I say this all the time. Yes, the ratings are out. It will be extremely difficult for me to infer that they were biased or not, or propaganda or not. I cannot, as a professional person in finance or macroeconomics. What I know is that you have various variables, even reserves and others. They are all part, GDP. But now, the difficulty has been concentrated on probably our debt to GDP. The rate at which we are borrowing or we have borrowed. And this is where we need to analyze this critically. We cannot take just one or two parameters and say that the entire economy is in tatters. That is false. It is not true. Because we have other performance parameters we use in appraising all economies in the world. And you know, most of these parameters that we inherited are doing so well, at least they are better than we took over. We need to address these issues. I'm not saying that our debt to GDP is not an issue to consider. They are talking about over 70, about 77%. This country, we've had over 100% before. Go and check the year 2000. We've had over 100% before. And that doesn't mean ours is good or better. I don't want to go in there. But the fact is, if you pick serious primary macro indicators such as even interest rate in our own country today, it's moved from about 37% to about 21%. Even government policy rate has moved from about 25 point something now to around somewhere 12 there. Check our T-bills. Check all of them, even reserve. So where our problem is today, which I accept, is our debt to GDP. Then let's analyze it. Is it remarkably the fault of the government? You cannot blame this government entirely unless you don't understand the issues or you're not being fair. We've had about 22 months of impaired productivity naturally. My colleague was talking about we had power outage for a long time. That wasn't a natural disaster. That wasn't a global issue. It was a mismanagement on the part of their government. I don't want to go in there. We've been in the country for so many months. Government had to pay public and civil service workers without they going to work because of the COVID. You are aware. We've been in a country where private sector had to sack over 40,000 people. The payee the government had to collect from them ceased. Corporate taxes ceased, went down so drastically. We had a situation where entities, companies, corporate bodies, market activities, industrial operations had to come to halt, and there was a point that we all had to even stay home. These practically affect productivity and will affect revenue generation. So government will not, sit down and say that my country should collapse when we have obligations. Some of them are statutory. You're talking about district common fund, whatever, that if you don't perform your obligation as a government, it's not good government. Go and check under them. Sometimes it went beyond 1 year. Go and check. I'm not saying because it happened it's good today, but we are talking about a situation that you cannot blame this government entirely. I'm not saying we shouldn't raise issues because impaired productivity definitely affects GDP growth. And once GDP growth is affected uncontrollably, your debt to GDP will go up, whether you like it or not. Because the debt is the numerator and the GDP is the denominator. And market activities and other things went down because of COVID. It is a fact. And because that happened, your numerator will go up. And government had issues 2020, revenue shortfalls. So definitely, another arm of financing government activities apart from revenue generation is that financing. These are issues. Whether we are rated high or not, the factors leading to even the ratings, if even it is so, you cannot blame the government entirely. And that is why the PFM Act, 2016 Act 981, Section 18 thereabout, talks about three conditions, or state three conditions. When there's natural disaster, when there's war, when there's health epidemic, upon consultation, our fiscal policies and rules as a country should be suspended. Go and check. So you cannot analyze an outlier situation like everyday situation in any society except Ghana. Ghana, let's accept the fact that if what we are in is not good, it is not entirely the fault of the government, because compare all these figures just before the COVID. Let's check all of them. So what we are saying is that we accept the fact that our debt to GDP is becoming alarming. As a country, we need to do something about it. Our fiscal space is congested. We need to consolidate it. How can we do that? We need to generate revenue.
Right.
We need to generate revenue. And here is the case that a very government that is giving the mandate to manage the economy thinks, analyzing all alternatives, this is the best way to go. Then out of propaganda from NDC, they've been able to influence some stakeholders in the country, putting pressure on the government not for government to embark on the policies and adopt the right options that will see this country through, because they want to come to power. If they think the yield levy is not good, it's going to make us unpopular, as they've said. You're going to lose election because of that. You think they will not let us pass.
Let me come in here. I just want to find out from you, in reality, just for the sake of clarity. Other institutions from outside of Ghana peg our debt to GDP ratio at 83.3%. Is it 78% or 83.3%? Can you give us some clarity on that?
I don't want to guess. I beg you. I cannot guess. But whether it's 73 or 83, the fact of the matter is that they are all not good figures. Even if it's 73, it's not a good figure. But the point is, let any professional in this country, any professor or doctor come and tell us that it is as a result of entirely mismanagement of this government. It's not true. It is never ever true, because GDP growth, the two main functions are productivity and labor force. Labor force in terms of size and in terms of scale components. And the private sector had to sack, I told you, over 40,000. Market activities were totally halted. Your GDP cannot grow. It is not a fact. And if it doesn't grow, your debt to GDP will go up. And because there were no activities, we're not getting the revenues we needed. So these are factual issues that, let's be honest with ourselves and God. Anything the rating agencies, S&P ratings was different from
Moody's and Fitch, right?
They are different. So it means that there's something we need to dig deeper. But whichever way, once your debt to GDP to me gets to 70, it's not anything good for us to be happy with. Then how do we go about it? Do we still continue to borrow? No, because people are saying that we are borrowing too much and our debt to GDP, let's take taxes. They are saying that, we have not touched base with the informal sector. We need to widen our tax net. Government comes with a new policy. You say, hey, cancel it. We don't want it. People will do this. Hell will break loose. So how do we consolidate our fiscal space as a country? And then he goes on saying that election people, that this propaganda, we should stop. My brother, go to Asunafo North. Go and have I can send you pictures, you will weep. How people were, cut into pieces. People were shot. I don't want to mention names because of ethical reasons. If you're talking about political violence, with the exception of what happened during Nkrumah's time, that we had the Bafo issue, check which of the fraternities in our country today actually put us in a situation where political violence nearly became a culture. The people were even saying the MPP for a week. Sorry for speaking to MPP for most of them are come for almost 3 days. You remember, we don't want to go in there. Let's address issues. This government, in terms of managing the economy,
right,
they should state other parameters which are very important in appraising any economic performance and compare them as we took over. Just check all of them. They were even growing GDP around 3.2, 3.4%.
But here's another fact. Here's another fact, Dr. Amwa, right before I come back to Edward Bauer in the studio. You would say that COVID-19 has been a bit of a scourge, in fact, globally, but it's also been a blessing, hasn't it? We've had the biggest bailout our country has ever seen. I mean, 33 billion Ghana cedis from the IMF, from the World Bank, by way of SDR. All of that has come to us, the cedi equivalent of 33 billion. The question is, what exactly have we done with this money? Yes, we've heard from Pierre Laporte, the World Bank representative in the country. He says we've been satisfactory in dealing with COVID-19. But that same person has also said that they are going to investigate how we expended our COVID-19 funds, at least what they gave us, the 560 million. And if we've not expended them for purpose, they're going to ask for a refund. How do you react to that?
Okay, thank you very much. I think people make arbitrary statements. They mention the figure, but they don't mention the volume of work, the obligations that we have to perform. 2, you said that the World Bank or IMF rep said
World Bank
yes,
representative.
we've done well in terms of satisfactory the work we've done. I agree. But let me tell you, these white people, even when their companies make profit, they still do further investigation, go through how they made a profit to improve on, or definitely along the value chain. Everything cannot be 100%. You and I know. Even along the value chain of multimedia, the things you execute, it can never ever be 100%. I don't want to say things publicly. It's like I'm banter, I'm debating you or something. But what I'm saying is that they say they'll investigate. Let us wait for them to finish their investigations. And I also quoted the PFM Act that even in times such as this, our fiscal rules and policies upon consultation should be suspended. Maybe Ghanaians have not looked at that extract, but what it means, because there are a lot of knee-jerk decisions will be taken. People were dying. We were scared. A lot of things might have gone wrong. It's possible. All right. That might not necessarily mean that somebody deliberately did wrong or right. But what I'm saying is that all the inflows you are talking about today, I'm expecting the same experts and professionals to come and tell us that in terms of our discretionary spending arm of our budget, A, B, C, D were performed. In terms of statutory, A, B, C, D were performed. In terms of the COVID and other natural requirements in terms of our outlays, A, B, C, D, they all amount to 1 billion. We have 4 billion. Where is the balance or the excess or whatever? This is how we do it. But people cannot just make blatant statements and say that we have so much and that we should show how we spend the money and where we spend the money. These things, they are all propaganda tools. But I'm not saying we shouldn't raise them. The point I'm making today is that any professional person should engage some of us publicly, bring international experts to come and analyze the fact that if you have impaired productivity, will your GDP grow? I'm asking you. Will your GDP grow? I'm asking you. It will never grow. And if your GDP is not growing, if your revenue generation is affected within that time, if government had to spend a lot on poor issues and make sure that we leave this country from totally going down so that we can stabilize it post-COVID, we can move on as a country, then somebody somewhere doesn't want to face facts. And now, because of propaganda, we attribute everything to COVID. All Ghanaians are saying this. These are all communist inferior tactic statements. The fact of the matter is that ask any professor to come and tell us that if we have impaired productivity for about 18 months, what will happen to your GDP as a country? Not even U.S. This is a fact. Look at America and other developing countries. Printed money because of this pandemic. They had to print money. And do you know the impact of printing money? It put inflationary pressure on even disposable income. Go and check. It puts pressure on our savings. You know, America has what? Inflationary rate of about 7% now. Go and check. UK has moved fourfold, about 400% from 1% to 4%. Their interest rate, unprecedented, from 0.5 to about 0.15. Let's be honest with ourselves. Even properly organized, established system, developed economies are going through some of these things.
Right.
But as a country, instead of us reduce the politics, analyze the situation, allow the government. How can you go to hospital with your issue and doctor diagnosis, doctor says tetracycline or quinine is the best thing for you, and somebody is saying that that is better or not. You want to die? This is what they want to do to this country. So we accept the fact that there is hardship. You cannot say 100% is COVID, but our debt to GDP is COVID. Because the GDP failed to grow because of impaired productivity. It is a fact.
Okay.
Weren't we asked to stay home, not going to work? Didn't the private sector sack a lot of people? Didn't they stay home? Ships that were bringing things to Ghana, since they were charging even $4,000, they were charging $12,000, $14,000. What you are here? It's 100% COVID. If you talk about the economy today.
So you say it's 100% COVID.
The very people that are talking plenty and making noise.
Right.
Even what they left with, is it only that GDP will consider in appraising economy in anywhere? It's not possible.
Just hold your thoughts.
Why can't they pay? Even inflationary rate that they are making noise. We took over about 15.4%. What is it today? Even inflationary rate. The only time in the history of this country that government interest rate was higher than lending rate on our market today. NDC's government interest rate was 25.5. Now lending rate is about 21. It's never happened. So they shouldn't paint.
So I'll let you debate this bit about
Ghana is useless. There's no hope. It is not true.
Right.
These are propaganda issues.
Right. I'll give you ample time to debate the bit about which administration has fared better. But let me come back to you.
Which one, please?
I'm saying that later on I'll give you ample opportunity for the two of you to discourse on which administration has fared better economically speaking, and see what you have to say. But just hold on for me. Edward, I know you have some quick reactions. Make them very brief, and then let us know, because on the back of the World Bank's spending, our COVID-19 spending generally,
yes,
you have also spoken about the fact that, and I say you not in terms of you personally, but the minority in Parliament, about probing it to get to the bottom of the spending. So put them together in the point.
It's the first one. Just on the last point he was making about the fact that COVID was a very serious challenge for us. Nobody is doubting the fact that COVID hit many economies. But you compare your performance to that of your neighbors. And on the basis of that, you make an assertion. We have always indicated that our crisis that we have today was not just purely based on COVID, but was also based on unbridled expenditure in the 2020 elections. We have always made that point. Now, just
so it's self-inflicted.
It's self-inflicted. Let me make this. Let me tell you. we're looking at what we call the fiscal deficit, which after the elections was almost 16%. It was 15.7, isn't it? Look at and compare to other countries. Whilst Ghana was 15.7, Benin was 4.7, Burkina Faso was 5.7, Cote d'Ivoire was 5.6, Gambia was 2.1, Guinea was 2.9, Guinea-Bissau was 9.5, Liberia was 2.6, Nigeria was 5.8, Senegal was 6.2, Sierra Leone was 5.6, Togo was 6.9.
So of all of these, we were the highest, over 15%.
Yeah, over 15%, whilst the next highest was somewhere around 6%.
Actually, it's 9 point something, because I think you mentioned...
No, I didn't mention. There's no 9 here.
That had
no,
9 point
there's no 9 here.
Do check again, because
let me check.
You say 9.
0 point, I'm coming. So I have 3.0, oh, sorry, I'm reading 4.7, 5.7, 5.6, 2.1, 2.9. Okay, yeah, you're right. Guinea-Bissau was 9.5. You're right. So you realize that this was purely self-inflicted. Because COVID was not only in Ghana. COVID was in Togo. COVID was in Liberia.
It was global. Yeah.
It's global.
It is global.
So, yeah,
still with us.
So it tells you that what was it that was different from that of Ghana is because we had an election in 2020. So part of this, the current crisis we are in, it's not just attributable to COVID. So that's the first point. My second point I just want to make, he had stated that look, the issue of power crisis was self-inflicted. I agree with him. It was self-inflicted, but not inflicted by the person who solved the problem. And luckily now, this was a sector I had worked in for about 7 years. You will recall that our power crisis was not only in 2015. You remember that there was power crisis in 2007 and 2008. You remember?
Yeah.
And it was just because of the issues of about generation deficit. Throughout that period, when we came back, when we finally started having power again in 2009, ask yourself a very fundamental question. What did we do? Nothing. It was just because Akosombo came up again in terms of water. Because between 2001 and 2008, when Akufo left government, not a single megawatt was added to the generation mix. So it tells you very clearly that this was a disaster waiting to happen. And that's why His Excellency the President, the then President, John Mahama, went to Parliament and said, look, I know this is a challenge and that I am going to fix it and fix it once and for all. And that's why today you hear people saying that we have excess capacity and they now talk about capacity charges. So that is the other point. Now the third point, on the COVID expenditure, my brother, there must be some level of transparency on how we deal with these things. And that's why when my brother talks and says that, look, we should be able to state that X was spent on this, Y was spent on that, Z was spent on this, and then we know that whether there was a differential. If that delta, how would then question people how they are supposed to account for those ones? I'll give you a typical example. Look at when they came, you know, when we are trying, before we come to what we call the appropriation bills, we always will have to do an assessment of what happened in the previous year. In the course of doing those, what they call auditing purpose and looking at how those monies were spent, if you take the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs had expended 65 million Ghana cedis on COVID-related expenditure. When we asked them for the details of it, they said they didn't spend it. They said they did not spend it. 2, Ministry of Health.
What was the clarity given then? If they did not spend it,
they said it was expended somewhere else, but put in their books. It was expended in their name. You understand what I mean? It was expended in their name, but they did not do it. 2,
for accounting or finance purposes, what would you call that?
That is simply just, I don't know, but that's irresponsibility. And in fact, to be very sincere, if you want me to be very blunt, this is thievery. This is thievery. 2, they, under the Ministry of Health, there was a 35 million Ghana cedis that was also expended. And that it was expended for conferences and then workshops and meetings. That was in 2020. At the time when, my brother, you and I, know that because of COVID, there were no conferences and other things held. It's not true. And most things were done by Zoom. So then we asked, this 35 million, let's see what summed up to give us the 35 million. Is it the cost of data? Because you're using Zoom? Is it because of that? We wanted to know. You know what they did? They came with the fact that they came and said that, oh, part of it was for PPEs, part of it was for this, gloves and other things. And the question you ask yourself, how do you caption that under conferences and the meetings? It is on the strength of this that the minority decided to sponsor a motion in Parliament asking that the COVID funds should be expended. You recall that The CPI report that came out, not this year, the previous year, that's last year's own. The CPI report that came out, that gave us the ratings of 43, which is still the same this year anyway.
Right.
You recall that one of the major reasons they gave for the fact that we had that low score was because of the lack of transparency in how our COFES funds were expended. So already there's a very big question mark. So when you hear the country director talk about the fact that, look, we would want to investigate and see the monies that we extended to Ghana, how were these monies utilized, the utilization of these funds.
He says they've been expended, at least Ghana has fared satisfactorily, but they're going to...
Remember, yes, and I see this is a diplomat. Remember that these Bretton Woods institutions, their country directors and others are also diplomats. They must be very careful how they put their things. But the very reason why, for the fact that they have a cause to say that they will want to investigate this. I mean, before his pronouncement,
is that an indictment? It doesn't mean they've done anything.
No. Look, let me give you an example. Before the announcement of the 430 million that they said that the total thing that they sent, Bank of Ghana, World Bank extended to Ghana. Did you know that you had that money? They had given out that money. Did you know that? Did you know? What we knew was the 100 million they had, Bank of Ghana, World Bank had sent to us. $100 million, is that not it? Did we know the amount that they put? Until they called John Kuma and said, yes, he has agreed that those monies were they transparent about it? So, when they were doing the report, even to Parliament, they said it was 100 million. So it tells you very clearly that these are people who simply are hiding a lot of things. So people hid behind COVID and decided to make sure that they rip us off.
You're suggesting a probe in Parliament.
Yes.
How far with that?
So currently, as we speak, as part of the initial stages, the Finance Committee, the Health Committee had invited the Minister of Finance to come and just give...
you've had issues with his failure to show up in Parliament.
And that is the basis under which we have had issues, because he's refused. And see, it is the arrogance with which they look into your face and tell you that we are robbing you, but you have no say in this. That is what they do. It's that sort of impunity. The fact that it is within their right to rob you. And that is exactly their behavior, their conduct, everything of theirs suggests that. And because at the end of the day, if today we find ourselves in the mess that we find ourselves, it is because there are certain things that are supposed to be done and are not being done.
Let me just find out about this bit from Dr. Stephen Amwa. If you can hear me, Doc, are you still with us?
Please.
Can you hear me, Dr. Amwa?
I can.
Right. I just want you to react to this. So these assertions and, of course, more probes to happen on the floor of Parliament in terms of the health minister. But in terms of how we have fared in dealing with COVID and moving forward, I see this statement, and I just want to reference what Dr. Esibe Yeboah himself said, that he would prefer that we don't go the way of the e-levy, that we go the way of the IMF, because then we can streamline matters while getting up to about $3 billion in terms of funding, and then we can revamp our economy and make it buoyant again. I've heard some members of the MPP say, no, not the IMF. But take a look at this and tell me whether even if we push through the e-levy, we will not need still to go to the IMF. Bright Simmons tweeted today, and he shared a thought that got me reflecting. He says, unfortunately, it looks as though Ghana once again has waited too late, and the window for other lower conditionality IMF products has closed or is closing on it. But I still think miracles are possible. I really feel Kenya got off lightly in 2020 and 2021, and Ghana could have made moves too. Are we losing out when it comes to the IMF and their windows and maybe taking advantage of the situation rather than focus on the e-levy like we are?
Thank you very much. But just before then, I think it's also very important that one or two issues that my honorable colleague
Please make your reaction brief so that we can go to the substantive.
Yeah, but he said a lot, so give me the same space to also do that because people are listening to us. For instance, I don't think my honorable member has forgotten the fact that we are T1, T2 Asogli, where all power addition in terms of value that they cannot take credit is from the MPP fraternity. So when they say we never added anything, it was a lie too. We should have also been able to balance demand and supply at that time. What did they do? Went to the extent of engulfing this country in unnecessary and unproductive death of take or leave. You remember that we are spending billions for something we are not supposed to use. I don't want to even get into all these things. But if he talks of thievery and corruption, they talk about all the time. Let's not talk about perception. I believe in courts of competent jurisdiction, jailing people all the time. The NDC, they be in power. Some of their people have been jailed all the time. This is what we can depend on. Perception, I'm not saying we should throw away, but you cannot. One is not guilty until proven guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. I don't go in. Then talking about Dr. Sibe and other people's alternatives. Yes, in solving problems, we have alternatives. I respect their opinions. It doesn't mean what they are suggesting is wrong or right. It doesn't also mean that what other person is also suggesting is wrong or right. Now, we are in government. Finance Ministry might have been privy to other pieces of relevant information that myself, maybe Dr. Sibe, maybe yourself, maybe even NDC brothers, they don't know. And once you have somebody out of this asymmetric information management issue is trying to make comments, you cannot authenticate that alternative better or more than somebody who is in the helm of affairs and has his own data point. So I think for now, we need to make sure that what the government is proposing by the year levy, let us allow the government and test that and see, maybe within 8-10 months, and see the impact on our fiscal space. Now, coming back to what my brother is saying, that the health minister spending, blah, blah, I am saying that I'm not a legal practitioner, but at least extra from the PFM Act gives me an opportunity to debate others who want to go against some of the decisions taken by the health ministry, that they spend this, without the authentication. Look, do we understand times that people are dying and times that we are making merry? You cannot, and that is why in the wisdom of those who framed the PFM Act said that, I said that Section 18 there states that the 2016, go and read it, that when there's natural disaster, when there's war, when there's health epidemic, upon consultation, even our fiscal rules and policies, what are the fiscal rules and policies? What do they comprise? Go and check. So they cannot treat it like when we are okay, there's nothing, we want to go through the Procurement Act and stuff like that. They're just doing propaganda. Now, the most important factor we should all address is that our economic situation today is not the best because of our debt to GDP. And it's also because uncontrollably impaired productivity that really causes us. This is where I think we need to make sure that we work on. But if other people want to bring in propaganda and other things, then it distorts the plans of this country, including all of us. I respect their views as opposition members, but they are more interested in winning power than solving the problems today. And that is why they've not been able to provide any alternative measures. They have not been able to. They can investigate the health ministry, they can do whatever they want to do, but at least it is also emphatically stated that one of the countries that has managed COVID-19 very well is us, Ghana. It is a fact. He was naming other countries. We should find out what was their output. Did they do the same things that we did? Did they do the same freebies? Did they have the same space that we had? And the things, the activities, the expenditures, you cannot compare a situation where somebody gave almost everything freebie. I don't know whether all the countries, they also stop people going to work for the number of months, and they are still going through some, even up to now, government is paying some public and service workers who are not going to work.
Dr. Amwa, if you're speaking of free stuff,
gas in the world, go and check. The agreement, go and check. The government pays what?
Dr. Amwa, can you hear me?
$40 million.
Can you hear me, Dr. Amwa?
Go and check.
Can you hear me?
Just a top-up. Go and check.
Can you hear me, Dr. Amwa?
So we need to, yes, please. We need to analyze these parameters well,
right,
in order not to throw dust into the eyes of Ghanaians.
Well, aren't we paying for the freebies, the water and the electricity? We are paying for them, right? There's even the COVID-19 levy.
But I'm talking about the time we're using them freely. Because that could also generate.
But it couldn't have been free if we are paying for them. But I just want to get
no,
this.
No, but out of the time we're giving to, we're not paying.
Right.
So government was only paying those things. It was expenditure we're making. That's what I want us to understand. Let's find ourselves. Let's find out whether those countries were doing the same work we're doing.
Right.
So you cannot compare apple and orange. You cannot compare the two. There are different jurisdictions, different space management, different economic situations, different population size, different areas that we're managing, and then the alternatives we're using were different. So you can't compare the two.
There are two crucial issues I want us to look at right before we wrap the conversation. The first one has to do with, and I'm coming into the studio, Honorable Bawa, the bit about the CDD's latest release when it comes to LGBTQI+, the bill, and how passing that into law could impact our economic fortunes. In fact, Mr. Anaba talks about the fact that the lead research member of the CDD talks about the fact that if we go this way, it will generate social disorder rather than order, and that it will affect our fortunes as we go out there to borrow, of course. A lot of these other countries in the West support LGBTQI activities, and they have different laws and principles on them. How do you feel about that? Are we just stretching this too far?
My brother, I think that I took the pain to, I've not seen what the research actually says, but I took the pain to read a reportage that was put on your portal.
Right.
And he seems to say that, look, these were experts and others who had made those projections. We need to ask ourselves, since we declared ourselves as a middle-income country, what has been the performance of grants, particularly into this country, into Ghana? He says that if you look at our national budget, it has always been between 4 to 6% in terms of that. But that at one point, the Minister of Finance had the cost to say that we were drying up on that. We're drying up on that because the moment we declared ourselves as a middle-income country, issues of grants, issues of concessionary loans started drying up.
Right.
So it couldn't have been...
Because of our status?
Yeah, status.
Right.
So it couldn't have been that. So and that's why the situation that we find ourselves. But besides that, you see, a country that is ready to sacrifice its values just because of the fact that they want to have money, it's not a country that you should be proud of. Your values must always, your values and principles must always stand tall, irrespective of the adversity. And I think that Ghana has been performing very well without this total influence. Because normally you realize, I give you a typical example. Look, you even see that any time they come with the budgets to Parliament, they tell you, particularly under the energy sector, you see that the amount of government allocation to the Ministry of Energy has always been very low. If you look, a greater part of it has to always be either through donor funding and what have you. If you see the influence on that, it is only the performance of the donor funding in that sector is beginning to dwindle. It is not because of, what do you call it, what's the name again? LGBTQ, plus and what have you.
So do you not foresee that this could have any impact? I mean, the donor community, a lot of those countries you go to have some affinity with LGBTQI rights. Are you saying that you don't see any connection
as a country, if we put our apps together, we'll work very well. The Auditor General talks about 12.8 billion. Is that not it? In terms of financial irregularities, whether they are procurement irregularities, tax irregularities, stores.
But we know with those, it is so many things linked together.
That's what I'm making the point.
Right.
So the financial, that's what I'm giving. That is payroll, procurement, tax, stores, contract, cash irregularities. These things, do we have control in dealing with these things? We do have. I've always given, when the World Bank, what's the name? Man came to this country,
was it Pierre Laporte?
Yes, the World Bank guy who came to you people and was talking. He talked about the fact that we should take a second look at how our tax exemptions are being dealt with.
Right.
You remember, for over a year now, we have had this tax exemption bill that has been brought to Parliament for us to streamline how tax exemptions are given. My brother, if you look at how tax exemptions are given to cronies and other things, what is the framework under which the state can give some exemptions in terms of taxes? We do not have it. There's a bill that is before Parliament. Right. For a full year, we've been struggling to see how government is never interested in, what do you call it, making us pass these tax exemption bills. That's the first point. Two.
And make it brief so that...
Yes, the other one, in terms of corruption, Shraj says that in terms of the country, we lose about $3 billion annually just to corruption alone. If you do it 1 to 6 in terms of rating, that's about 18 billion. If we are able to just plug the holes in some of these things, these people who sit in their countries and think that men should start jumping about with other men and women should be jumping about with other women. And in fact, some of them are contemplating the fact that it is only legal for a man to be jumping over an animal. Just because of the peanuts they give us, we are ready to sit down and sacrifice the values that we stand for. We are products of our culture. Our culture tells us very clearly that these things are simply, what do you call it, offensive. And so, whatever the Mr. Anaba man was talking about, I don't know who he was talking to, but let me say, if they want, they should go to hell.
All right. Doc, how do you react to this? Yes, there's been the talk about the fact that if we're more self-sufficient, we wouldn't have to be going through this. But the suggestion by the CDD that if we push this bill into law, the LGBTQI plus bill, it will affect our economic fortunes. Do you agree with them?
To some extent, yes. But I think that doesn't mean that our sovereignty and our discretion, our prerogative right, and our exclusive right will be compromised as a country.
But let's face it, Doc. If you don't control the purse strings, if some other entity pulls the purse strings and they react in a certain way, when you go for their money, don't you think that there's some manipulation in that?
Yeah, what you're saying is perfect. And what CDD is saying, yes, socioeconomically it will affect us. That's a fact. But that doesn't mean we should compromise our sovereignty. That's my position. But I think I want to correct this because I think your platform is the most prestigious now. And if there's something erroneous we need to work on. Those who are keeping on saying that financial irregularities, summary of the financial irregularities 2020 is 12-point-something billion. It's not true. I beg you. Receivables can never be classified in any field of financial framework or reportage that it is irregularity. Go and check. Over 10 billion out of about 12.8 billion forms part of receivables, debtors fund. It's never irregularity. Please go and check that again. As my brother is stating that, because it's been deception thing being used in Ghana today, and that is false, probable false. I wonder why the Auditor General's report contains that and deceiving the entire country. Even simple accounting. Where do we place receivables in our books? I mean, it's very dangerous. But I want to put that aside and let my brother say, go back and check that thing. He is my colleague. We can meet in Parliament and discuss this. But what I'm saying is that I am against this whole issue of homosexuality, and I support anything that will go against it. If we will suffer, we should suffer. That will even teach us a lesson to be independent economically. I believe we have to. A country with this huge endowment of natural resources and raw materials, some of them do not require complex value chain to produce them and create sustainable jobs and be independent economically. We are always being influenced and attacked and blackmailed and intimidated because somebody has bigger economy. Yes, it will impact us. That one, I agree with them.
Right.
But what do we do? I still think we are a country with sovereignty. We have our exclusive right, our prerogative, our discretion to manage what Kwame Nkrumah said, what black man is capable of. We have made a lot of mistakes over the years, about 40 years now. I agree. But we need to set up. Some of these things should tell us that we should begin to think together as a people and plan big and think big and have a long-term plan to make sure that one day if there's war, global war, and we can't move to Togo, we can't go to UK, nobody can supply anything, what will we do? Some of these things should rather caution, especially NDC and PP, to sit up very well and manage this country very well going forward. I believe in that. But I think that media personally, not my position as MPP government or MPP party, but me as individual, with my Christian background, I don't think I will support anything contrary. They can take whatever they want to take away from us. I would rather go for the LGBT. And it's my individual statement, I beg you.
Right, yes, and that is your individual opinion. You are not reflecting that of the party.
But what you are saying is a fact. What you are saying is a fact, 100%.
We have to wrap the conversation on this point.
Just wrap. But you see, he talks about the fact that out of the financial irregularities, you look at outstanding debts and the loans, the receivables. Receivables were monies that you are expecting to get back, isn't it? In 2020 alone, it was about 10,067,170,560. These were monies particularly that were channeled particularly through NBSSI through to their party apparatus during the 2020 elections. You recall that they were sending, under the guise of COVID expenditure, they were sending some monies to their people on mobile money or on mobile phones.
Right.
And these were and the reason why the Auditor General knows that these are monies, that these are financial irregularities, is because of one, the procedure under which these monies were sent to these people was wrong. Two, not all receivables. That's why sometimes even in accounting, some receivables auditors come and tell you that, or maybe the board of directors will look at some of the receivables and say that these things are bad debt and therefore we expunge them from our books. Because receivable is that I'm expecting that you owe me, then you are going to pay me. If over a period of time, every time you have a situation where, in terms of your receivables, it says that you have 10 cedis, and I add it to part of my assets that I have. But meanwhile, I know that you are never going to pay. It becomes a bad debt. I don't know that I'm making sense.
Right.
And so, what do you call it? The Auditor General knows these are not monies that can be recovered. These are not monies that can be recovered. And guess what?
This conversation is one that
it happened
are not
from
going to bring
2019, which was about 4 billion. It shot to almost 11 billion.
Right.
And this is because of, in 2020, they were going about giving freebies to their party people through mobile money. That is the issue.
Doc, just a quick one. Even as we look at who has fared better in terms of dealing with the economy, and that's a wrap. But we have the Marshall Plan from after World War II, and this is quite cataclysmic as well when it comes to COVID-19 and its impact across the world. Former President Mahama has suggested that we need a recovery plan, COVID-19 recovery plan. Do you agree with him?
I really don't know the context in which he spoke, respectfully.
Economically speaking, just like we had Senchi.
Yeah, but that is too broad. He's been a president before. He has more experience than me. He knows a lot of things I don't know. So I respect his view. But I think he has to be a bit detailed. I don't know what he's talking about. Everybody knows that COVID situation called for very extensive planning and framework going forward to attain the needed or expected growth rate and also stability. I agree. So what he's saying, a lot of people have said that. But let me correct this. The receivables are not solely NAP and those things my brother is talking about. Even some of the components, they comprise or they consist of government workers who have been given advancement or advanced salaries, and these are guaranteed. They are in it. Go and read it. There is nowhere on this receivables. The fact that they can even lead to bad debt can be classified as financial irregularity. It's not done anyway because we have financial, we have accounting standard, reporting standard. When it comes to audit, let's look at this aspect: that whether the financial statement prepared complies with the international standard, reporting standard is very, very important. And even if you talk about compliance and other things, which is very key when it comes to auditing, we need to also look at the components. So what I'm saying is that Auditor General report has to be reviewed. They should come clear on this because it's deceiving a lot of people.
Okay.
And I know my NGC guys, they are sharp, they know. But of course, politics, they want to do something with it. But moving beyond what we are talking about, what the former president is saying, we shouldn't heap scorn on that because he's a former president. We should take it, analyze it, and see if there is any sense or otherwise in it. We can add it because MPP, we are not, we don't hold all knowledge in this world, all pieces of relevant information to build in a socio-economic framework. No. So once he's a former president, we can also judge with him, get more understanding of what he's saying, and see the extra from his statement, which is good. That's how we build a country. And I think I respect what he's trying to do. But then I believe he's doing that without any politics. So that as a country, we can all be constructive and build the needed cohesion as a country and move this country forward. But I think the COVID-19, if Ghanaians support the YE levy and other policies government trying to bring to us or put on board or bring on board, trust me, within the mid-term and long-term, Ghanaians will start laughing again. That if they want to impede and impair everything that this government wants to do because NDC, they want to come to power, influence the media, some of the media practitioners, inside the public against government policies, then at the end of the day, we all suffer as victims along the cycle.
We're
grateful. Is what we need to be careful with.
We're grateful that you joined the conversation. Dr. Stephen Amwa, Member of Parliament for Nshia. So Edward Bauer, we are grateful that you joined the conversation as well, Member of Parliament for Bongo. I know you would have wanted to have another bite, but I think your thoughts have been expressed and time constraints as well. But thank you so much.
That's okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Now we take a break. When we return, we talk to you about the university students. USAC, for example, appears to have had a bit of a divided front. We're going to be engaging student leaders on the UTAG strike. It's still extant. There was an inconclusive meeting yesterday. We'll discuss that up next on the AM show. Do stay. Well, we'll get into a conversation with the student groupings and their leaders as we talk about the UTAG strike, which is still grinding. Dr. Christian Philip Ama is President, University Students Association of Ghana. He joins us here. We also have Kofi George Abwa, a lead convener, Coalition of Concerned University Students. Both of them join the conversation. and it's all about, well, the UTAG strike. Let me start with you, Dr. Ama. In recent times, last week, Thursday, you had some interactions with UTAG on the back of the latest developments. Looking at how far we have come in this strike, which is still going on, the NLC, as arbiter, invited both government and UTAG to come in Georgia on the 7th, which is Monday. It didn't take place. Yesterday, we had the Vice Chancellor's Ghana also coming together to intervene. Do you feel we're making any progress?
Good morning to you and your viewers. I think we are making progress. The National Labour Commission invited UTAG and the government on Monday. Earlier on Thursday, that was last week, the court directed that within the space of a week, our lecturers should take steps to call off the strike, and government, National Labour Commission also take steps to withdraw the case from court. And so the following day, I think the same day, all the SRC presidents, yes, on Thursday, all the SRC presidents had agreed that they were going to petition the Chief of Staff Office about the issue. And so that petitioning happened on Thursday. From there, all the SRC presidents moved to the Ministry of Education, met with the minister and also the Ministry of Employment. We tried to also set up another meeting with UTAG. We have always been in touch with them. Yesterday, we were with the national president, and officially our meeting with them is on Thursday as well. And on Friday, the ministry met with Vice Chancellor's Ghana, since UTAG was not too comfortable with the National Labour Commission. So yesterday, the Vice Chancellor Ghana mediated a meeting between government and UTAG. And so we think that the 1 week period that the court gave, we are making progress, and we hope that based on the extensive discussions that have been going on, by Thursday when we go to court, students are hopeful that good news would come to them. And that is what we are all looking for. That is very, very worrying and a sad situation when you visit our university campuses, where almost 5 weeks there has been no academic work going on. And so we are hopeful that the 1 week period the court gave would be fruitful for all of us.
Kofi, the court initially spoke of the groupings resolving their differences by the 10th, by which time they would have to come back to court and the action would be taken from there. But it doesn't appear that is going to happen. Today is the 9th, and not much resolution to that entire affair. But are you hopeful as well? Were you at this gathering yesterday as the Vice Chancellor's Ghana tried to mediate? Were you there? Were you at? You were not there.
I wasn't aware of that form of information.
Right.
I wasn't aware.
But I'm sure you've heard of what emanated from there. Are you as hopeful as Dr. Christian that?
Yeah, Dr. Christian doubles up to be my president at the University Student Association of Ghana.
Right.
I humbly serve as his coordinating secretary. And the whole issue about the UTAG strike, I would appreciate if we are to look at the genesis. And I speak on
briefly
the
on that, because
in August, you get it, when they moved back to the negotiation table, what happened? Why is it that they are now refusing to go back to the negotiation table? So our hope lies on the earnest that the national executives of UTAG would come to a compromise with government. But in the other vein,
but the compromise you speak of must be based on something, right?
Exactly.
We're talking of conditions of service, allowances and the rest, and they've still not.
Our big problem here is that why is government not able to meet them even halfway? Are you sure that if they go back to the negotiation table and government is saying something optimistic, they wouldn't hit to what government is saying? We are all humans. We know that when there is a problem, communication is key. For instance, when you have a problem with two huge bodies, we should have in mind that whatever will transpire within them would depend if there will be peace or there will be a continuous war. So with my coalition leading concerned university students, I believe that university students have paid exorbitant fees, exorbitant hostel fees, and the more this fight is to proceed, it rather affects the academic calendar. It seems a lot of people are not speaking on the repercussions. I mean, if this is to prolong, the university management are being compelled to shut down universities. And we should see how NLC is even handling the issue. I would say, why even, first of all, send them to court? NLC was expecting an...
But that is mere procedure. We've spoken to the leadership, the executive secretary of the NLC. They say that it is procedure. When these actions kick in, they must go to court.
So why is it that the judge then gave them an advice to go back and speak on a negotiation?
That is at the discretion of the judge.
Exactly.
Just like what happened in August last year.
You should realize that they had an enclosed meeting, an indoor meeting, which had information that was shared between these three parties. That's the court, the NLC, and UTAG. You and I were not there. It was just the representatives that told us what transpired. And I strongly believe that if NLC was to meet UTAG in a more appropriate, convincing manner, but rather not bullying them to court, they would appreciate the fact that them being a referee in this matter, they would heed to their advice.
You feel the NLC has acted like a bully?
Personally, I feel that the NLC has acted as a bully. Why do I say this? We all know the role of NLC, which is constitutional in the Act 651. If I'm correct, I would want to reference that particular act. We know that they are to serve as a mediator between the employer and the employee. So if the employee is demanding for specific conditions of service and it has compelled them to go on an industrial strike, what do you do as a referee? It means that you serve as an arbitrator within the two parties, right? So why bully one out of the way, sending the person to court, thinking that you would compel them to call off the strike? You go to court, they tell you to send the matter back and have a peaceful discussion and come back on the 10th. So these are some little things we believe if government was to be very firm on the grounds to instruct NLC to play its key role as a referee or even meet UTAG halfway, it means that there would have been a good news or an outcome. Because as I speak to you, university students are just in their rooms. Most of them are even gone home. You get it? So it places the university student in a sense of dilemma and trauma. So when are we to wait? Should we continue with this stakeholder engagement? That's the big question. Till when?
Let's look at your divided front when it comes to the moves to adopt moving forward. The Coalition of Concerned University Students, you had wanted to embark on a demonstration.
Yeah.
And you, on the other hand, you have put out a release that you are not in support of such a demonstration, the overarching USAG leadership, that you are not in support of such a demonstration, that you were not aware there were any such plans. Why this split? Why this faction? Because you would expect that as students, you would be one body en masse, pushing for your concerns to be addressed. But it appears even as USAG, you are split. Why is that, Kofi?
Okay, since my president wants me to start on this conversation, I'll be very glad and honest here that I remember 2 weeks ago when we met the national executives of UTAG. If we'll be honest on this table of discussion, the national executives made us understand that the process of negotiation has been very abysmal. They were very honest with us.
That is UTAG.
UTAG, when we met them. That's representation of USAG and UTAG. We met them at their UG chapter secretariat. And we had preview to a lot of documents. And to me, I was a little bit disheartening because earlier in November, we had the opportunity to meet the Minister of Education. He assured us that when we met him, we told him that we've gotten intel that UTAG will soon go on strike. What is the ministry doing to curb the situation?
Oh, so, you mentioned this to Dr.
Yes.
Yawase.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right.
So when we mentioned that, he boldly told us that it's under control, and in the first time in history, lecturers are taking 300% of increment in their books and research allowance, which is from 1,600 cedis to $1,600 US. So I remember I had an interview on Class FM. I really applauded the minister because I believe lecturers will be very happy, and this was a long-term solution to this impasse. So later when we met UTAG, that was when we had the opportunity to sign documents.
Right.
And the document was an MOU signed between government and relevant stakeholders. We had Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Employment and Labor, UTAG representatives. And that was where the outline of their negotiation was in the government white paper.
Right.
So you could see that though they have increased their book and research allowance, which is from 1,600 cedis to 1,600 US dollars, it was effective in 2024. So in that meeting with UTAG,
and just to chip in, UTAG itself has had concerns with even the bit about $1,600. But you go ahead.
So when we engage them, you see, we speak on behalf of our students. The fight is not helping anyone because at the long run, it affects ordinary Ghanaian students. So they told us boldly that with this book and research allowance that is increased to $1,600, why is it effective in 2024? I have copies of this MOU here, and I believe that the media even have copies of the MOU. So their worry was that if you are increasing the allowance, they are very happy about it. Why is it 2024? Is it a form to compel them to vote for the government which is in power already, or a form to make them understand that you care for them but not now? You care for them in 2020.
So that point is made. Let's get to the thrust of this dichotomy of a split.
So it was in that meeting, I was there with my president and the WOCOM and the person of Ms. Amtuameo. And I hinted that I believe UTAG would not continue with their negotiation engagement with government because of the previous documents they've shown to us.
Kofi, did you agree or not as a body, USAG, to go on strike? Or to demonstrate, I mean?
But I'm not demonstrating on behalf of USAG. I'm demonstrating on behalf of the coalition of concerned university students.
So that is settled. USAG as a group did not decide to go on demonstration.
USAG as a representative body of university students is decided not to go on a demonstration. Right. I, the National Coordinating Secretary, doubling up as a lead convener of a coalition, believe that this engagement wouldn't help our students.
So why was the impression created at the point that USAG was going to demonstrate?
I didn't create any impression that USAG. I saw you popped up a letter over here.
I've seen the documentation.
Exactly. On that letter, you could realize that I didn't use USAG's name. I use the coalition, and it's my right. It's my right as a student. One is my even right as a national student leader.
Right.
So if I see a communique from my president dissociating the whole union from it,
how did that make you feel? Very briefly.
It doesn't make me feel anything because I have SRC president that are even supporting the demonstration.
Okay.
And tomorrow they will be there.
Right. Christian, why are you not joining this demonstration? It is in your interest, right? I mean, you are concerned about the issues.
Thank you. I think Kofi does not understand the issues going on, so he's trying to mess the issues up. To be fair, we met with UTAG on the 13th of January.
Right.
And they explained their side of the issue to us. The message we had when we were leaving that meeting was that we think the National Labour Commission is not being fair, and so we need to visit them to also understand, because UTAG has told us a story, and in their own estimation or summary, they look good, or their side of the story looks good, and so we need to listen to the National Labour Commission. So when we ended the meeting, Kofi, who was there with us, indicated that he thinks we need to go on a demonstration. And then,
that's what he told you?
Yes. That's what I said in
that is what he told the Women's Commissioner and myself at the end of the meeting. And I told him that we cannot go on a demonstration because we haven't heard the side of all parties. He mentioned that UTAG told us that the 2024 effective date for the research allowance, book and research allowance, they had issues with it, and I think that Kofi is not really getting the fact. In fact, even now...
Which is what? What is the fact?
So the fact is that the research allowance was increased in 2019 to 1,500 cedis from 500 cedis. And then in 2021, when UTAG embarked on the strike, and through engagements, they had to call it off. On October 6th, they agreed with government that in 2021, the amount should be increased from the 1,500 Ghana cedis to 2,500 Ghana cedis. And in 2022, they will be paid 6,000 Ghana cedis.
Right.
In 2023, they will be paid 8,000 Ghana cedis. And in 2024, they would be paid the cedi equivalent of $1,600.
Right.
That is the explanation. So it's not as if the Ministry of...
I would humbly want to ask if maybe the payment has commenced. I'm just chipping it in for my president. Yes, please.
So this was the arrangement that UTAG has had with government, and they signed on...
You subscribe to that, so you
yes.
And you think it's the way to go?
Yes, and the book allowance was not touched. Book allowance is pegged at $1,500. So there is a difference between research allowance and there is a difference between book allowance. The book allowance, $1,500 was not touched. Now, you said the divided front. I do not see we have a divided front because I do not say for myself. We lead a group of people. And so we have a National Executive Committee, which is made up of all the SRC presidents, plus the 8 National Executive Officers. And so when we have a series of meetings and we agree that we should move in this direction, even if, however, how much I disagree with the position, I am bound by it.
So basically, you don't have that consensus, and that is why you're not joining them for this demonstration.
No, the National Executive Committee had a plan that, first of all, we petitioned the Chief of Staff.
I'm basically saying you don't have that agreement as a group, and that's why you're not joining them for the demonstration.
No, even, I don't know why he's going on demonstration, because on 31st January, after we had the last meeting, Kofi came after the meeting and indicated that whatever proposals that the entire team has agreed on, he stands by it.
I would want to
and so,
one or two things.
we as SAG have not...
Thank you, Chris. To wrap the conversation, we don't have that much time. In 20 seconds, tomorrow, you are planning on embarking on a demonstration. Is it coming off?
Yeah, it's coming off.
Okay.
And we have approval from the regional command of the Ghana Police Service.
Right.
We've engaged the national headquarters of the Ghana Police Service. Right. They believe that our voices should be heard.
Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. Dr. Ama, unfortunately, we don't have time. And Kofi, thank you for joining the conversation. Now, do you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay any income tax on these activities for the first 5 years of operation. A young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. Now, for Accra and Tema, it's 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions is 12.5%. Outside of the other regional capitals, it's 10%. That's what it's pegged at. And for the 3 northern regions, 5%. Now, for further clarity and information, all you need to do is to reach out to the nearest GRA office, Ghana Revenue Authority, of course, integrity, fairness, and service. So reach out to the GRA if you have any concerns about this. But this is where we sew it up for the AM show for another beautiful morning. The UTAG bit, well, it continues. Hopefully there's some resolution to it. Do have a wonderful day. Don't you forget, at 10 and at noon, we bring you the news. My name is Benjamin Akapo. Have a good day.